Have you been bitten by the credentialing bug? If you're a medical biller or coder, you know what I'm talking about. That uncanny urge to want to just add one more credential to your name. If that's you and you're trying to figure out how to choose the next credential, this video is for you. What's up, everybody? My name is Kat, and I'm a certified professional medical coder, certified professional medical auditor, medical biller, and owner of Superior Medical Consulting, where we provide superior medical billing solutions for your private practice. You can visit our website at superiormedicalconsulting.com to schedule your free consultation today. And welcome to Level Up Medical Coding. All right, y'all. So this video is pretty much late in my opinion, but it's not, because it's always going to be relevant. But I say it's late because AAPC is offering their free AAPC. Like, I love this time of year. This is the time of year where those of us that just love credentials can go on AAPC and just pay for the exam, and they give us all the study material for whatever credential that we want to add to our repertoire. And we have a whole year to study for that, and we have 1 or 2 exam attempts, and then we live on our merry way with our other credentials behind our name. So, little known fact about me: not only do I hold a CPC for my certified professional coding, I hold a CPMA for my certified professional medical auditing. I also have a CRC, which is a certified professional risk adjustment coder. And I also have a CPCD, which is for certified professional medical coding dermatology. That's a lot. But so I know a thing or two about getting other credentials and getting bitten by that credential bug. Like, we all get it. We all feel like, oh, we just need one more credential so it can help us in our career. It help move us along our career path. And this is true. This is true. Like, that's why they have all those credentials. But not all of them are necessarily needed. And not all of them will be easy to maintain. So let's talk about it in this video. But before we jump into it, let's just take it back and let's just talk about the basics. What is medical coding in the first dang on place? So medical coding, it plays a crucial part of the healthcare industry. It is the process of basically translating medical records into universally accepted codes that the insurance companies and government entities take, and they use it for reimbursement, and they use it for statistical purposes. So in order for you to become a coder, you have to get certified through an accredited source. The most common accredited sources are AAPC and AHIMA. So let's just go ahead and talk about the nitty gritty, getting into these credentials. So I got a few tips for you. I have my notes over here. Like, I really thought about this. Like, if I could tell myself, what would I do in order to make sure that I don't just overspend money, and also, make the right career choices for myself. So, and speaking of money, if you stay to the end of the video, I am going to kind of give you a little brief outline on how much it cost for me when I first got my medical billing, my medical coding credentials, because I paid for it myself and it wasn't cheap either. But if you stay to the end of the video, we'll talk about all that. I'm not going to bore you right now. For the people that came here just to get an understanding on how to choose their next credential, we're going to talk about it now. So the first thing I would like to say is you got to make sure that you go through a reputable source. There's so many medical billing and coding programs out here. A lot of them will, train you for your medical coding and billing certificate. They'll give you a certificate, but they don't give you your accreditation credentials, because you actually have to go through either AAPC or AHIMA in order to get that. if you are in a program that's teaching you medical coding and billing, one of the things that you should make sure that you ask upon completion of this program, will I be accredited through a national reputable source such as AAPC or a HEMA? If that is included in your learning, great, good to go. If you like that program, take it. If they tell you that's something extra, they don't do that, think about that. Think about if you want to have an added expense on now, not only paying for your career, your course there, you're going to have to pay to get to sit for your exam, for your credential through one of the two entities. It may be just an added cost to you. So think about that. And if that's not clear and you don't understand that, drop a comment below and ask your question, and I will try to explain that a little bit better. But there's a variety of ways that you can study for your medical coding and billing credential. I did make a whole video on how long the curriculum usually taking, all the different ways that you can get this credential. You can go through a trade school, you can go straight to the source, AAPC or a HEMA, you can go through a community college, and you can also go through a 4-year college. I outline all that in my video. If you're interested in it, I'm going to put it in one of the cards on one of my sides in the cards up there, so check that out because it is really, really helpful, I think. But yeah, just make sure that somewhere in getting this credential, a APC or a HEMA, is talked about and known that that's where this credential come from. AAPC has what they call specialty credentials, and the HEMA have what they call micro credentials. So the second thing I would say is you need to make sure you understand clearly your career goals. When you got into this medical coding and billing career profession, where did you see yourself ending? Do you see yourself being a coder and working for a healthcare system, a facility, a clinic, a doctor's office? Did you see yourself going into management? Did you see yourself being an educator? Did you see yourself auditing? Did you see yourself going into compliance? Did you see yourself doing documentation? What do you want to do for your career? It's so many things that you can do in this world that you need to actually go to a HEMA or go to AAPC and really look at what they have to offer and understand the career paths that you have at your disposal, and make your determination on what credential you will like based on where you think you want to end up ultimately in your career. So work backwards, like start off at the end and then work your way back to get, your career, to get your credentials. Now I say that, but your base credential that you have to obtain is either a CPC, a COC, or something like that, or like a CCS or like a CSS, I think it's through a HEMA. So make sure that you have at least your base, your core credential first, which gives you an overall view of coding, and then dial into kind of narrowing that down into your micro credentials or your specialty credentials from there. But the most important is they align with your career goals. So the next thing you need to consider is what you want out of this. So I know some coders that just want to code. They say that they've been in this profession for a long time. They've been working in healthcare and they don't want to do anything but code what they know, and they're gonna do that until they retire. There's other coders that are in this and they're ambitious to kind of move up the ladder. And so they want to continue to expand their education, expand their reach. And so, they have goals to advance themselves beyond just like an entry level coder. So whichever path you choose, you need to make sure that you get the certifications that kind of align with that as well. If you want to just code and you don't see yourself, branching off into, auditing or compliance, then don't go for your auditing or your compliance or your educator. certification. But if you kind of just pretty much want to code, but you want to code something like, like surgeries, maybe find you a specialty that includes surgeries like ophthalmology or urology or gastrourology, things of that nature, those specialties. Or you could do something like me when I wanted to learn more about dermatology. I just took dermatology, have like a lot of, procedures, but minor surgeries. So I wanted to get credentialed in that. So that's why I obtained my CPCD so that I can specialize in dermatology. But there's so many specialty credentials that you can, look into. Also make sure that when you are thinking about your certification, that you understand the requirements that each certification hold. Each certification is unique. A lot of them do overlap, but each of them are unique and they have their own prerequisites and, things of that nature. So, some certification require that you hold your CPC for 1 or 2 years before you can even think about sitting for the exam. Some certifications you don't have to have any prereqs but your, CPC. Some certifications you don't even have to have your CPC. Like if you go for your CRC, I don't think your CRC requires you to have your CPC, but my CPMA certification required that I had my CPC. I think I had to hold it for like a year or two before I can even think about that. So check into that and make sure that you got all the prereqs and requirements taken care of before you go and chase this next credential. Another tip I would say is that you need to consider the exam and how to obtain it, how to study for that exam. So a lot of times I hear people complain that the credential that they are studying for, that they don't have any proctored tests, especially if they're one that like to take tests in person, that they don't have any proctored tests in their area, so they have to go to a next city over or a next state over. And it's really frustrating that they don't have that option. So just keep that in mind, that could be a potential issue for you, because if they usually you will always find like a CPC or a CPB or a CPMA, because those are sort of common exams that AAPC, I'm speaking on behalf of AAPC, right? Well, not on behalf, but I'm speaking in relations to AAPC because that's my only experience. But you as long as there is tests being offered, you will pretty much always find that you can take those tests. But those little specialty credentials may not be as lucky. You may not have a test for that credential in your area. So keep that in mind, that it could be a potential issue for you. It's not always common, but it could be an issue. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Also, for studying for the exam, depending on how you want to study for it, usually specialty credentials and stuff, you have to get that through AAPC or HEMA. Like you can't get it through. I've never heard of an entity that's teaching you risk adjustment coding, for example. So you have to get that through. It's an AAPC thing. So just make sure that you have the study materials in the way that you would like to study available for you, because if you're a person that you need a teacher to study, you prefer to study with the presence of a professor, you want someone a resource you can ask questions to, and that particular credential don't have anybody that's in your area that you can actually go to and get taught from, that's a potential, risk for you, because you may not be able to fully grasp the material without that resource. If you are a person that, needs some kind of webinar and that particular credential doesn't offer webinar classes, that may not be suitable for you to learn at this time. So just think about how you will be able to study for that credential, and if that fits in with your overall learning style. Also, understand the cost to maintain that credential. CEUs ain't cheap. The more credentials you get, the more CEUs you have to obtain. So, and you still only have 2 years to do that. So make sure you have it in your budget to be able to fund the ongoing education needs of each of these credentials. All CEU opportunities does not have a one size fit all for each credential. AAPC does a really good job at telling you how many how many CEUs is required for each credential. And if you take like CEUs through like their webinars and things of that nature, they actually tell you if that webinar CEU will satisfy any of your specialty credentials. Like for my dermatology credential, I have to take something that's associated with dermatology. So that could be like a ENM, something to do with the skin, some kind of CEU that teaches us about, skin lesions or maybe even cancers or maybe something that relates to dermatology. I cannot take a CEU that focuses on ophthalmology, for example, and think that it will qualify as a CEU for my dermatology credential. So just keep that in mind, because in the long run, like having a medical coding certification can be expensive if you aren't prepared for the cost. And again, I'm gonna talk about the cost of my credential setup, initial credential at the end of this video. That's coming up. The next thing I would like to say is make sure that there is a demand for the credential that you are seeking in your area. Every area is different. Some area may not have a demand for a certified cardiovascular and thoracic surgical coder. That's just an example. I just picked one random specialty credential off AAPC website, but they may have a coder for that already. That's great, excellent. One clinic in the area, they don't need that. So it'll be kind of not a waste of your personal time, but for that particular instance, it may not be beneficial for you to obtain that credential right then and there, unless it aligns with your overall career goals and you just want to do it because you know that you will need that and benefit from that. But just be smart in picking your credential to make sure that you will be able to benefit from it fairly quickly, because like I said, the CEUs ain't cheap, and you have to maintain that. And a lot of times, if you don't use the knowledge that you obtain, you lose it. So why get that credential if you're not going to code in that area? So that when you do finally get an opportunity to code in that area, now you're going to have to kind of learn it all over again. Or maybe you may not ever get an opportunity in that area. So think about that. Also, make sure that you are, of course, networking, seeking support from other coders, other billers, maybe your supervisor, other people in your facility to, check out to see what the needs are in your area, in your facility. Other coders, like what they hear, so that you can kind of know where, if you are on the fence about maybe two or more credentials, that it will help you narrow down to just like one credential that you just have to get right now. That could help. And then last but not least, I would like to say, just make sure that you, it goes along with the last point, but seek advice from experienced coders. Some coders that's been in the game for a long time would be able to tell you you probably should get that credential, or, in our area, I haven't, had any experience with that. So it may not be necessary, but here's my final thoughts on that. So, it's always to get good feedback from other coders. You may not necessarily really take their advice, but at least hear them out, because they're in the industry and, they have knowledge just like you do. So that's pretty much what all I wanted to say about how to choose your next credential. So my little career path kind of went like this. I started off as a medical biller, and I billed for a major healthcare system in my area for about 2 years. I completely stumbled up on that job just by chance. I was already in the claims adjudication field. But I was laid off, and so I was looking for another opportunity. And when I was on my job hunt, I was like, it's finally time for me to work in a hospital. I want to, work for a health system, and I'm just going to apply for all these like insurance company, hospital type. I want to work in a doctor's office. So I got online and I applied for a couple positions actually. Got a couple calls back, and the one I resonated with most was a major healthcare system in my area. I got the interview. Me and the supervisor kind of hit it off personally. So I knew like at that moment that I pretty much had the job. I had no experience in billing, and I knew claims, but it wasn't claims like this. It was medical claims, but it wasn't like this. I kind of faked it until I made it. Like, it was so funny. One thing I always will remember is the supervisor, after we wrapped up the interview, as we walking out, she's shaking my hand, we joking about something. And she was like, I forgot to ask you, you know what a 1500 in the UBO4 form is, right? And I looked at her dead in her eye and was like, I sure do. Yeah, I do. I know them forms we can't use. The insurance companies need them for. You can't be a hospital without them. And she started laughing so hard, and she was like, okay. If we're interested, we'll get back with you. And she just walked out. So I didn't know a UBO form, a 1500 form that was the first time I had ever heard those words. But in my mind, God sent that in my mind. I don't know that it had something to do with insurance. Of course, it got something to do with hospitals because the whole interview was about insurance companies, right? So I knew it had something to do with that. So when I got home, of course, I was like, what is a UBO4 form? So when I looked it up, I was like, damn, I was right. That's good. So I definitely looked up on that one. I ended up getting a call back. One of the best jobs I've ever had in my life. As a supervisor, that woman was so great. She encouraged me. She actually encouraged me to move over into coding. So after about 2 years of billing, I, went over into the coding department. I actually got my coding job before I even was certified. They worked with me in order to take my test. I failed my CPC test 2 times before I passed on my third try. And then from there, I just kept advancing. So from there, I, decided that I wanted to get my CRC due to another job opportunity that I had. That clinic was like an ACO clinic. So they did a lot of risk adjustment coding. So they required us to get our CRC. They paid for that credential. So, hey, why not? I took that. After I got my CRC, I decided that I wanted to, figure out my career path. I wrote down in my notebook, like, I want to ultimately be an educator / auditor. So this is my career path I need to go on. I went to AHIMA's website. They have a beautiful career map that helps you map out your career. And I went on there and I kind of looked at each thing and look at a path of how I can get to becoming an educator or auditor. And I kind of wrote that out and saw what credentials I would need, education I would need, length of years, experience, all that. And I went to work. My next credential after that was CPCD. And that was because I started working for another health system that allowed me to code what I love, which was behavior health, but they also was in need of a dermatology coder. I had never coded dermatology before and definitely had never coded procedures before. So I was like, you know what? I need to get that knowledge under my belt. And what better way to do it than to get a specialty credential? AAPC is offering that. I purchased that through the free AAPC and end up getting my dermatology credential. And then at the same time of me getting my dermatology credential, I also purchased the certified professional medical auditing credential and kind of study for those a little bit at the same time. Not really. I didn't really study for the auditing one, but I had the information to study for both of those credentials at the same time. Ended up getting my CPCD first and then ended up getting my CPMA degree certification afterwards. That one was a complete surprise. I have a video talking about that too. If you're interested, I'll link it up here. But yeah, so that was kind of my career path on how I end up obtaining my credentials. At the end of last year, I decided I wanted to start my own medical billing business. I've been in this world, here and there for overall about 15 years now, but I've been a coder for almost 10 years now. And I was a biller prior to that. So it was time for me to start my own business. So that's kind of how my little career path went. Now, I did promise you that I will talk about the money, how much it costs for me to obtain my certification. So I started studying for my CPC way back in 2015. I say way back, that's not that far, but I started back studying for it in 2015. So again, I was a coder a little bit before 2015 anyway. I was a coder towards the end of ICD-9. So that plays a factor in some of my costs, but that's neither here or there. So initially it cost me I purchased the class through AAPC, the whole shebang. It was the class, the books, the study guide, and I think one practice test. That was $1,810.71 in 2015. I did not finish my studying for my CPC in the allotted time that they gave you within that $1,800 price range. So I had to pay for extensions. I bought a total of 6 extensions, which was about $29.95 each. That brings the total up to $1,990.41. Now, again, because I started studying for my credential at the end of ICD-9, by the time I was ready to take my test, ICD-10 had rolled around. So I needed to buy books again. So my books for my test was an extra $388.38. Now the total is up to $2,378.79. I felt like I wasn't ready because, again, I kept failing, the class or whatnot. So I ended up having to buy study guides, and I ended up having to buy study guides. So that was an extra $211.40. And then after that, because in that initial $1,800 price, I had 2 exam attempts. So that was exhausted because I failed both times. So I went ahead and purchased another 2 exam attempts. And that was, I think it was $299 at that time. It's gone up now, but I think it was an extra $299. So it came to $380.80 with tax and everything. So let's add that. So I am at about $3,000, $2,978 and some change. I'm at $3,000. So it cost me $3,000 in order to get just my CPC. And that was solely because I needed extra time. I had to buy new books. I needed study exams. I needed study guides, all that stuff. Results may vary, but that was my cost. So it's not cheap. So that's why I say when you understand your career path, you will save costs because you will be streamlined. You won't have to try this and try that. And, hopefully you take the studying seriously and you grasp your information, within your amount of exam attempts. You won't have to pay for, extra exams. I just wasn't so lucky. But that was my experience. If you have any questions or any ideas on, any future videos, if you have any questions regarding getting your CPC, your CPB, or any of the other credentials, just let me know. I would definitely be here to help you. Wish you much success in your journey and, obtaining your first or your next credential is totally worth it. It just takes strategy, just like anything else in life. So this will definitely be something can significantly impact your career. It can help you advance. I don't care what nobody say. Some people say getting multiple credentials don't matter. If that was true, you will see most coders and billers with only one credential. Credentials does matter. I'm gonna leave you with that. Have a good day, and I'll see you in the next video.
3, 2, 1.
That relates to dermatology. I can't take something, for example, in obstetrics. I can't. Why do I try to say medical terms that I don't? Let's just keep it simple.